legislature for 30 years. You know what's going to happen miraculously in the next few weeks? Somehow or other, there will be a miraculous bill which will appear that will be signed by the government.
Welcome to Outside the Box with Mitch Hank. To be a part of the program, call 321-1310 or toll free at 877-235-1310 or email Mitch at WIBA.com. Now here's your host, Mitch Hank, on News Talk 1310 WIBA and WIBA.com.
And welcome to a Monday edition of Outside the Box. We start running this morning on the campaign trail. The latest candidate to enter the fray for the United States Senate on the Republican side, making his announcement last Thursday and Friday and touring the state, Eric Hovde joins me on line 6 this morning, who is off there. A lot of money and success in the investment banking business and comes from a real estate family. And good morning, Mr. Hovde.
Morning, Mitch. How you doing today?
Well, I'm doing fine. And first of all, a lot of people in conventional wisdom, pundits out there, think that it's really late to get started. I know you announced last week and made your tour of the state. Do you not agree that you got the primary is in August, so you got about 4.5 months to go here?
Yeah, look, I think most of Americans are tired where we just go on and on with a never-ending election cycle. If you look at Ron Johnson, he didn't even announce till April when he got in 2010. And frankly, like I do with my businesses, I don't believe you announce something until you're fully prepared, fully ready. So the second we announced, I'd already built my campaign team. Our website was up, ericforsenate.com. All the people were put in place. So I feel very comfortable with the time, and frankly, getting in any earlier, all these guys do is throw dirt and mud at you and try to distort your record. So I like my timing.
Now, you've done very, very well for yourself, Mr. Hovde, in the financial sector, and we see all of the politics right now about the 99%, the 1%, all of that. But, yeah, you've been very critical of Wall Street and think some people should be in jail from the meltdown.
Yeah, I do. Look, I have competed with Wall Street my whole career, so I don't want that to taint my view on them. But the simple fact is they have given us a series of booms and busts. Remember the internet bubble? They threw away their underwriting guidebook on how to take companies public that they had in place for 50 years, ripped off the American public there. The housing bubble, they were packaging up subprime mortgages into a variety of CDO products. These are just derivative products. They overly complicate things, blew up the housing market, and played a critical role there. And they just continue to give booms and busts, and they broke security laws. At the end of the day, they broke the law, and they haven't been held accountable. And I think we've developed this toxic relationship between Wall Street and Washington, D.C., where Wall Street buys off Washington politicians. They call them cheap insurance, because it allows them to get away with unethical and illegal behavior. And then if they get in trouble, they step up and get the Washington politicians to bail them out with our tax dollars.
I have not heard that. I heard Ben Stein. You hear a lot of these guys on these financial shows, and they say the reason nobody's in jail is because they were following the laws. But you actually are saying that they broke securities laws. I think that's the first time I've heard that.
Oh, absolutely. Look, there's been a series of different investigations. Look at Goldman Sachs. They originated a pool of absolutely toxic mortgages, sold them to pension funds. They turned around, had one of their clients short those exact same pool of mortgages, betting against it, and they pled not guilty but paid a $500 million fine to the SEC. Well, they're not paying a $500 million fine if they didn't break any laws. And the Financial Commission that went in and looked at it, asked why weren't any of these guys prosecuted. So I think it's just been a very toxic relationship. And, yes, I think it's very clear when you're selling a product that you know fundamentally is not viable, that is, breaking security laws. And they have the emails that verify how these guys felt on the products they were selling.
So you sound like the free market conservative populist in this race. What is your vision, Mr. Hovde, for the country in terms of creating jobs and expanding the private economy?
Well, look, That is the number one thing we need to do. Right now, which is very scary to me, is we have 24% of our economy being absorbed by the government. If you roll in the federal government, the state and local governments, you're up to 40%. That is right where Europe is. I mean, we are in, to a degree, socialism. We need to grow the private sector, reduce the public sector, and let the free market system work. And the other thing we have to do is create economic stability. When you are having a federal government racking up such an ungodly amount of debt, we have 100% debt to GDP. We're adding another 7.5% this year. We're borrowing 40 cents on every dollar. It makes a private sector businessman look out and say, do I really want to make that investment in that factory or in that piece of real estate to construct or whatever it may be, where I'm not going to get a return on my investment for 5-10 years out. And if they are concerned about our federal government and our financial systems being unstable, they're going to sit on that money. And if they do, that's not creating jobs. So we have to bring financial stability back.
When we come back, I'll ask you about what you specifically regarding the tax rates and on spending, if there's a plan out there you like to try to curb the excessive spending and how that ties to inflation and gas prices. Eric Hovde, running for the United States Senate. We'll take this to the bottom of the hour. Listen to Outside the Box on News Talk 1310 WIBA. All right, Plan Z. I'm going to people come up to me in the street. They're on Plan Z. If you haven't heard about it, it's a wonderful new program. I hesitate to call it a diet because it's really a new life. I mean, you're saying goodbye to the old habits and the addiction that we suffer, where we actually crave and need the starches and the sugars that mess with our blood sugar, and we just crave it. So you reset and you do new things. And how about these meals? That's the thing, is we're sitting here 30 pounds down since January 10th. I mean, you can do it too. As well, Rob is down 69 pounds, Al 27 pounds in about 30 days. All these, and the woman who hugged me a week and a half ago said she lost 40 pounds and just hugged me at the Addy Awards. But the food is better. The marinated beef tenderloin steaks with sea salt roasted asparagus, grilled fish with Mexican stew, the French chicken with Zola Diet veggies and raspberry sorbet. Folks, sloppy joes with Zola pops, grilled beef kebabs with green beans and strawberry smoosh. I mean, it's better food. The seasonings, endless recipes. You can join the fun, eat food, lose weight like crazy, and change your life. And with better food. Go to the keyboard now. PlanZDiet.com. No sense waiting any longer. PlanZDiet.com.
Wake up with the news and the newsmakers. Madison in the Morning. Weekday mornings after 5 on 1310 WIBA and WIBA.com.
All right, we continue on the campaign front here. The latest candidate to jump into the Republican race for U.S. Senate, Eric Hovde, a very successful businessman, largely in the financial sector. Mr. Hovde announced last week and was touring the state Thursday and Friday. Let me ask you about gas prices because the president's trying to talk about the oil companies and crises in the Middle East, but I know there's another school here that inflation is driving this and some of the spending policies of the Federal Reserve. How do you weigh in on that?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that, Mitch. Here's the simple fact. If you look at what's happening with the Federal Reserve, they've instituted something called quantitative easing. What is quantitative easing? It's basically money printing. Since they started quantitative easing 1 and then 2, and now they've got something going called Operation Twist, they're devaluing the dollar, which is the reason why all our basic necessities are going up. This is a direct result of spending or borrowing 40 cents on every dollar. So they devalue the dollar. You look at gas prices, the underlying oil prices, all basic necessities, sugar, corn, wheat, cocoa beans, coffee beans, gold, silver, tin, aluminum. All the prices of all these basic necessities are going up, and it's a direct result of the Federal Reserve money printing that they're engaging in right now.
What about on the tax policies? The Republican candidates for president are trying to play one-upsmanship with lowering rates and getting rid of loopholes and deductions, but that's always a sticky point. What do you advocate?
Oh, I think we absolutely need to simplify our tax system. Look, most Americans don't understand tax policy. Almost all of us, I'm considered a financial expert. I need to have somebody help me prepare my taxes. I think our tax system is a travesty. It's littered with those who are well-connected, can twist the tax code to their favor, And let me give you I like numbers. If you look at small and medium-sized businesses, their general tax rates are at the highest corporate effective tax rate, somewhere in the low to mid-30s. If you look at the S&P 500 companies, their tax rates are typically half that. Why? Because they spend money in D.C. to twist the tax code to their advantage, so they operate with much lower tax rates. So small, medium-sized businesses are always working at a disadvantage, and they are an engine for creating jobs in this country. I think there's no question we have to get rid of almost every single loophole. The only two that I like staying intact, or I won't even call them loopholes, but deductions, are the charitable deductions for obvious reasons, because charities do a much better job caring for people that are hard off than the government ever does. And right now, I would not touch the mortgage deduction. I know a lot of people in Washington are talking about that, but you don't go mess with that right in the middle of a housing crisis. So I think all the rest of it goes. We get rid of a lot of the corporate welfare that's been baked into our tax system, and you bring down rates and fair up the system, and so people can understand it. There's no reason an individual shouldn't have a 1 or 2 page piece of paper that they can fill out their own tax forms.
So put those Wall Street crooks in jail and get rid of all those deductions, ethanol subsidies, and all of that. I mean, you're kind of running that free market populist message. Is that going to get some traction in this primary?
I don't know. I hope so. I think we need to get back to what made this country great for the first 200 and some odd years. The sad thing for me is we've seen something called crony capitalism seep into our political system and into our economy, where those that are well-connected don't have to suffer the consequences of the capitalist system, which is failure. What happens? They get bought off. Or you have things like Solyndra and a whole host of other companies where people donate money. And this is one of the things that I find President Obama and the cynicism and the hypocrisy he's engaging in with this whole 99-1. The simple fact, he has taken more money from Wall Street. His administration is loaded up with Wall Street people. Tim Geithner, who's his Treasury Secretary, was head of the New York Fed, responsible for overseeing Wall Street. And, and you look at something like Solyndra, a big campaign contributor, gives him money, and he signs off on $500 million in loan guarantees for a solar company. Once it goes bankrupt, we, the taxpayers, lose our money, but he still has his campaign contribution. So I totally believe in the free market system. It's the way that has always produced the greatest amount of economic growth, and I think we have to get back to that. And I think we also have to get rid of crony capitalism out of our government, because it's advantaging the select few to the disadvantage of everybody else.
Yeah, the 1% thing, you're clearly in the 1%, but it's kind of a sore point with you, isn't it, if people throw that at you?
Oh, look, I've spent my whole life working my tail off. I've sacrificed more weekends with my family than I can even count. I'm proud of what I've been able to accomplish and what I've done with my resources. If anybody has a question about where my heart is, go to HovdeFoundation.com, something I started back in 1998. We've built homeless shelters around the globe for street children. I funded things for military veterans, for inner-city school kids. The list goes on and on. So, I think this whole 99-1 is class warfare at its utter worst, and it's exactly what somebody like Chavez in Venezuela plays. And as he's playing it, he's ripping off the American people.
All right, Eric Hovde, off and running. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate the time.
Hey, Mitch, thanks so much. I really appreciate being on the radio with you.
Okay, that's the latest candidate for U.S. Senate. We'll come back. Kathleen Falk's spot in this whole question about the protests over the weekend and collective bargaining rights. Are they rights? This is Outside the Box.